Hello everybody, it's Non-Seeing News here, and today we've got a lot of broken dates today. So the first news coming today is coming from China and Russia's Far East. So we've got news that Russian-Chinese air patrols continue. So the Russian airspace forces and the Chinese Air Force conducted another joint air patrol in the Asia-Pacific region. Russian Tu-95 MS strategic bombers and the Chinese H-6K strategic bombers made an 8-hour flight over the western waters of the Japanese and the East China Seas and the Western Pacific Oceans, the Russian Defense Ministry said. The Russian Ministry of Defense stated that Russian Su-30s and MiG-31s and Chinese J-16 aircraft fighters escorted the bombers along the entire route. So the strategic bombers were escorted by fighters aircrafts from other countries at points along the route. So while these Russian and Chinese bombers made their patrols, Japanese F-16s and American F-16s intercepted the Russian and Chinese bombers. So very big news coming from the Sea of Japan and the East China Sea regarding tensions. We've got some more news coming from Russia's Far East that Russia launches the Condor FKA satellite into space. So the Condor FKA radar satellites were successfully launched aboard a Soyuz 2.1A rocket from the Cosmos rocket site here. So Russia launches yet again another satellite into space. We've got some political news coming from Russia that Putin apparently spoke by phone with the Iranian president, the Kremlin reported. Putin and the Iranian president focused on the escalating situation in Syria, which we will be talking a little bit about in this video. So the two presidents of Iran and Russia discussed the escalating situation in Syria during a phone conversation, the Kremlin reported. Additionally, the leaders also discussed current issues related to the development of Russian and Iranian cooperation. A plan for further contracts were outlined. So we can expect in the near future more Iranian and Russian cooperation, and the both presidents of both Iran and Russia discussed the situation in Syria. We've also got news that a phone call was also initiated by Putin with Erdogan, the president of Turkey. So we don't actually have the full results of that telephone conversation, but we'll probably get to that in next video. We've gotten some media reports, that's Russian media reports, that the Lieutenant General Sergei Kessel, the commander of the Russian military group in Syria, has been removed from his position. The reasons for his dismissal have not been disclosed. So the Lieutenant General Sergei Kessel, the Russian general in Syria, has been dismissed. Again, we don't know why. Probably because of the situation in Syria. And we've got some news coming from Ukraine that Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, did an interview with SkyNews.com. So within this interview, Zelensky stated that partner countries want us to lower the conscription age. Zelensky said that, "Do you want me to conscript young people and have them die without your weapons? The real problem is not lowering the age, but armament. Ukraine asked the West to arm 10 brigades of the Ukrainian armed forces, but the US and the EU equipped only 2.5 brigades. So Zelensky has stated that the problem is not Ukraine, not having enough men, but weapons. So interesting news. We've also got news that Zelensky also urged Western officials to avoid contact with Putin. Western politicians should not communicate with the Russian President Vladimir Putin because it could open Pandora's box, the Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky has warned in his interview with Sky News. We've also gotten some major news coming from Kiev today, the capital city of Ukraine, that the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has visited Kiev for the first time since 2.5 years. So Olaf Scholz did bring an aid package of 650 million euros to Ukraine to help, obviously, Ukraine, but still, it seems that Zelensky was not satisfied. Zelensky stated that Ukraine could hit more Russian military targets if Germany provided it with Taurus missiles. So, Still, Zelensky seemed to be appreciated the aid package that the Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor, brought to Ukraine, but still, he urged the German authorities to approve the Taurus missiles to Ukraine so it can hit deep inside Russia. So, big news today. We got some news coming from Poland. That's the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said that 3,500 concrete hedgehogs have been installed on the border with Russia, on the Kaliningrad border here. So this is the border between Russia and Poland. So the Prime Minister of Poland, at the same time, he noted that the line of defensive fortifications called the Eastern Shield, for which $2.5 billion have been allocated, will also be extended to the border with Ukraine. So he stated that our activities also concern the security of the border with Ukraine for other reasons, but we want Poles to feel safer along the entire length of the eastern border. So not only Poland has completely fortified the Russian border, Poland is now fortifying the border between Ukraine and Poland. We've also got news that the EU nations and Western countries expect up to 5 million refugees if heating and power grids fail due to Russian strikes in Ukraine. So EU experts have warned nations around Europe that 5 million Ukrainian refugees might leave Ukraine due to the dire electricity situation in Ukraine in the coming winter. We've got some news coming from Kosovo and Serbia that Kosovo blames Serbia for a canal explosion. So the Kosovo Prime Minister has accused the Serbian authorities of being behind a blast on a canal that provides water to the province of Kosovo, two main coal-fired power plants. So the Prime Minister of Kosovo spoke about the attack on the Labank waterway near the town of Luzbin Potok, so this exact town here. In a televised address on Friday evening, parts of the region could be left without power if the damage caused by the explosion is not fixed soon, he warned. So there's been a massive canal explosion in this area here in Kosovo, and the Kosovo Prime Minister has blamed Serbia. So the tensions between Serbia and Kosovo continue to rise. The next news we have received today is coming from the Caucasus country of Georgia, and more specifically, the news is coming from the capital city. So new footage has arisen from the capital city of Georgia of protesters now using fireworks and even Molotov cocktails against security forces. So radicals have begun using fireworks and even Molotov cocktails against security forces. So it is noted that combat groups have appeared among the protesters, whose task is to lure the police to themselves and then inflict maximum damage on the officers with obviously fireworks or Molotov cocktails. So due to the situation that's unfolding here, the EU is now actually threatening Georgia with sanctions and accuses authorities of using violence against protesters. So the new EU foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, which is the ex-Prime Minister of Estonia, I think, has said that sanctions are one of several options being considered by the bloc, by the EU, after Georgia froze accession talks with Brussels to enter the European Union and cracked down on pro-EU protests. So the new EU foreign policy chief stated that it is clear that using violence against peaceful protesters is not acceptable, and the Georgian government should respect the will of the Georgian people. So, very big news. And this, the big protest really started happening when the Georgian authorities announced, announced that they will be freezing accession talks to the European Union. So, very big news come from Georgia. And now let's finally head to Syria. So I have finally now managed to add on the map the current situation that has unfolded in the territory in Syria. So if you can see here, I've now marked different parts of Syria in colours. to actually show us what territory is in control of what. So first, let's just head to the red area so we're all clear. So the red section here that's highlighted in red, this is the territory which is controlled by loyalists. So the Assad Bashar, the president of Syria. So this is the forces controlled by Assad Bashar, the president of Syria. And if we can see here, there are many green sections in the country. This is under control of rebels. So the rebels of the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and the Syrian National Army and the Syrian Free Army. So all this green section here is controlled by rebels. So a lot of these is actually backed by Turkey. We've gotten some the yellow area here is in control of the Syrian Democratic Forces. So the yellow area here is the Syrian Democratic Forces controlled area. So now let's actually get into the news that's coming today and the past couple days. So we had news that the Syrian rebels actually managed to capture the major city of Aleppo from Assad Bashar's forces. So if you can see here in bottom left corner, the Syrian rebels actually managed to capture 5 L-39 aircraft jets from the Assad Bashar's forces here in Aleppo. So the Syrian army actually didn't manage to retreat enough equipment. We also had news that the Assad Bashar's forces also left a good chunk of its military equipment while fleeing their positions. Now they are captured by the Syrian rebels. So we've gotten a lot of equipment that have been captured by the Syrian rebels. We've gotten news that BTRs have been captured, T-64s and T-72s, and even T-90 Russian tanks have been captured. Anti-air defense systems, and even, as we just said, Syrian jets have been captured. So Syrian rebels actually managed to apparently capture a Russian-made Panzer air defense system in the Syrian city of Aleppo. So this is huge news. So the rebels managed to actually do an offensive that pushed the Syrian army to this current line, allegedly. So the Syrian rebels continue to push through Syria. So this is really big news. So Bashar Assad, the president of Syria, stated that Syria will continue to defend its stability and territorial integrity in the face of all terrorists and their supporters, and that it is capable, with help of its allies and friends, of defeating and eliminating them, no matter how intense their attacks are. Russia has stated that Russia continues to support Bashar al-Assad, the Kremlin says. So the situation, the civil war in Syria has completely resumed to an all-time high since apparently 8 years. So the Syrian forces continue to do their offensive and capturing huge amount of Russian equipment. So very big news. I probably have explained that completely horribly, but again, I've just learnt about the situation in Syria about 2 hours ago. So forgive me, sorry. Now let's head to the current situation in the African country of Burkina Faso. So the only news we've gotten from Africa in the past 2 days is that the armed forces of Burkina Faso conducted a counter-terrorism operation in the eastern part of the country. During the operation, 6 militants were eliminated and their weapons were seized. So if you can see here, we can see the weapons that were seized by the rebels. We've also got news that Chad marks Freedom and Democracy Day after severing defense ties with France. So Chad commemorates its 34th Freedom and Democracy Day on Sunday with a military parade. So the president of Chad and other government officials attended the ceremony in the capital city of Chad, featuring traditional music and military parades. So interesting news. So Chad celebrates Freedom and Democracy Day. And the next news we have received is coming from India, that Vladimir Putin's visit to India is being prepared. There are no exact dates yet have been confirmed, the Kremlin says. So Vladimir Putin will be visiting India pretty soon, but again, no exact dates have been dated or anything. Let's head to Sri Lanka, where we got news that Sri Lanka has approved the port expansion in the Bay of Gal. So the Sri Lanka Port Authorities, the SLBA, has received approval to reclaim 45 hectares of land in the Bay of Gal for a major infrastructure and property development project. The development, which aims to transform the port of Galal into a state-of-the-art tourist hub, includes a cruise terminal, facilities for passenger ships, and super yachts and water sports. So the project also involves the construction of 2 offshore breakwaters to protect the harbours. So interesting news. We got some news coming from China, that China has launched yet again another rocket into space. So the Long March 12 maiden flight, China deploys 2 experimental satellites into space. So China has successfully completed the maiden flight of the Long March 12 carrier rocket from the Hainan commercial launch site, deploying 2 experimental satellites into orbit. So China has launched 2 experimental satellites into space. And the next news we have received today is coming from Japan. So Japan is to sell a $10 billion Mogami class warship to Australia. So the Foreign Ministry has released a statement on November the 28th detailing the decision, noting how important is Japan's relationship with Australia. Japan has never sold a modern major weapon system to another country before, but it seems that it is now happening. So Japan is going to be selling a $10 billion Mogami class warship to Australia. We got some news coming from New South Wales in Australia that the Australian police managed to seize 2.3 tons of cocaine. So 13 suspects were arrested after police found and seized 2.3 tons of cocaine in their boat that broke down off the coast of Queensland. So very big drug bust has happened in Australia. And we've got some news coming from the United States that Joe Biden has pardoned his son Hunter Biden for all crimes committed since January the 1st to 2014. So Joe Biden, the President of the United States, stated that the accusations against his son Hunter Biden are attempts to break him, and there is no reason to believe that they will stop. So he also claims that he has kept his promise to not influence the work of the US Department of Justice, despite the decision to pardon his son, and hopes that Americans will understand such a step. So, if we remember, not so long ago, Joe Biden held an interview with, I believe, ABC, where I think you should just watch it for yourself. So, it's about a 10-second long clip. Here it is.
Your son Hunter is on trial, and I know that you cannot speak about an ongoing federal prosecution. But let me ask you, will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
So we can clearly hear from this interview here, we can clearly hear that Joe Biden said that he wouldn't pardon his son Hunter Biden. So this was from June this year, so very interesting news. Even the White House also promised that he wouldn't be pardoned, but today has changed everything. So that's actually all the news I actually have for you today. I am Non-C News. I'll try and provide you news that medias around the world do not show you. I do these videos hopefully daily, so consider subscribing and liking. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye.